think you can just sing like that in my house? You're nothing but a noisy little brat." My brother Ethan's hand struck my 7-year-old daughter. Sophie's face, the sound cracking through the Cape Cod breeze like a gunshot. "I'm Claire Bennett, 32 years old." And nothing could have prepared me for that moment, or for the chilling laughter from my parents that followed. The salty air stung my eyes as Sophie's cries pierced my heart, and in that split second, my world tilted. I stood frozen on the manicured lawn of my parents' seaside estate, the weight of their betrayal sinking in. We were there to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary, a grand affair with clinking champagne glasses and a documentary crew capturing every polished smile. But beneath the surface, old wounds festered. My family, the Carters, had always been a house of mirrors, beautiful on the outside, distorted within. And Sophie, my bright, fearless girl, had just been caught in its shards. Let me take you back to that weekend in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, where the ocean roared and secrets whispered. I'd hesitated to come, my gut screaming to stay away. Family gatherings were never safe, not for me. Growing up, I was the black sheep, the one who never fit their mold. Ethan, my older brother, was their golden child, charming, ruthless, untouchable. My parents, Richard and Margaret, built their legacy on his success, while I scrambled to prove my worth. That day, as Sophie's sobs echoed, I realized I wasn't just fighting for her. I was fighting for the girl I used to be, the one they tried to silence, the documentary microphones, hidden in the roses, recorded everything Ethan's cruelty, my parents' complicity. It was the evidence I needed. But would I have the courage to use it? I'm sharing this story because I believe no child should be hurt for being themselves. Have you ever faced a moment when family loyalty clashed with protecting someone you love? Drop your story in the comments below. And if you think kids deserve to shine without fear, hit that subscribe button. This is our journey from a single shattering moment to a reckoning that changed everything. Stick with me, because what happened next, it's a story you won't forget. I grew up in a house where love came with conditions, and mine were never quite met. The Carter family lived in a pristine colonial home in Newton, Massachusetts, all white shutters and manicured hedges. But inside, it was a battlefield of expectations. My father, Richard, a retired lawyer with a voice like gravel, ruled with an iron fist. My mother, Margaret, floated through life in designer dresses, her smile as brittle as glass. They had 2 children, Ethan, their pride and joy, and me, Claire, the disappointment who dared to question their rules. As a kid, I learned early to tiptoe around their moods. Ethan, 3 years older, was everything they wanted: athletic, sharp, a mirror of Richard's ambition. At 16, he was captain of the lacrosse team, acing AP classes, and charming every adult in the room. Me, I was the dreamer, scribbling poetry in notebooks, always too sensitive, as Margaret would sigh. When I spilled juice at dinner, it was a crisis. When Ethan broke a neighbor's window, Richard laughed it off as boys being boys. I still remember the sting of Ethan's smirk at my high school talent show, when he leaned over and whispered, "You're embarrassing us, Claire." The audience clapped, but his words drowned them out. By 18, I was counting the days until college. Boston University felt like freedom. And there, I met Ryan, a kind-eyed history major who saw the real me. We married at 21, too young, too desperate for a family that felt safe. Sophie came 3 years later, a bundle of giggles with my brown curls and Ryan's hazel eyes, holding her. I swore she'd never doubt her worth, but cracks appeared fast. Ryan started staying out late, his phone buzzing with texts from someone named Emily. When I confronted him, he admitted to an affair. We tried therapy, but his apologies were hollow. By Sophie's 4th birthday, we were divorced. I didn't tell my parents about Ryan's cheating. I knew they'd twist it into my failure. Sure enough, Margaret's voice crackled through the phone. A man doesn't leave a happy home. Claire, what did you do wrong? I swallowed the hurt, focusing on Sophie and my job at Horizon Media, a small firm in Boston. I'd just earned a promotion to communications coordinator, a step up that barely covered rent and daycare. Some months, I had to ask Richard and Margaret for help a car repair, a doctor's bill. Each check came with a lecture. If you'd been more like Ethan, you wouldn't struggle like this. Ethan's life, of course, was a glossy magazine spread. He'd climbed to executive status at First Coastal Bank, married Lauren, a quiet art curator from a wealthy family, and lived in a Back Bay penthouse. No kids, just focusing on our careers, he'd say, his tone dripping with superiority. Richard and Margaret held him up as the gold standard, their voices sharp when I visited. Why can't you apply yourself like your brother? I wanted Sophie to know her grandparents, her uncle. Despite the cost to me, family mattered, I told myself. I'd be her shield against their poison. Looking back, I see how naive that was. You can't protect someone by walking them into a storm. That Cape Cod weekend, I ignored the knot in my stomach. Sophie was thrilled, chattering about painting the ocean and seeing her cousins. My best friend Jessica warned me, those people never change. Claire. Why go? I brushed it off. It's just 3 days. I can handle it for Sophie. But as we packed, I felt like I was bracing for war. I had no idea how right Jessica was or how that storm would break us open. Our tires crunched on the gravel driveway of my parents' Cape Cod estate, a sprawling mansion with ivy-covered walls and endless ocean views. Sophie bounced in her booster seat, her eyes wide. Mom, it's like a castle. Can I paint the beach today? Her excitement was a spark in the heavy air, but my hands tightened on the steering wheel. The house loomed like a warning, its beauty hiding the same old traps. I forced a smile. Let's settle in first, sweetie. Then we'll see. The front door swung open, and Margaret appeared. Her linen dress crisp despite the summer heat. Her eyes flicked over my faded jeans before landing on Sophie with a practiced warmth. There you are. We thought you'd gotten lost. Her hug was stiff, her perfume sharp. Traffic was rough, I said, stepping inside. The foyer gleamed with polished wood and fresh flowers, every detail screaming wealth. Richard stood by a marble fireplace, deep in conversation with my uncle, barely glancing up. His nod was all I got. Ethan and Lauren emerged from the dining room, his arms slung around her like a trophy. Ethan had Richard's broad shoulders and a smile that never reached his eyes. Well, look who's here, he said, his voice carrying across the room. The prodigal sister and her little artist. Sophie shrank against me, suddenly shy. Hi, Uncle Ethan, she mumbled. Lauren stepped forward, her smile genuine but cautious. It's great to see you both. Claire, Sophie, your cousins are out back if you want to find them later. Sophie perked up. Can I? Mom, I nodded. After we unpack, Ethan sipped his scotch, eyeing me. Still at that little media place. What's the job again? Glorified secretary. My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice even. Communications coordinator. Got a promotion last month. Actually, he raised an eyebrow, his tone mocking. How quaint. I just sealed a 9-figure deal at First Coastal. Dad, did I tell you about the bonus Richard's face lit up? And just like that, I was invisible again. He clapped Ethan's shoulder. That's my boy. Always raising the bar. The great room buzzed with relatives, cousins, aunts, uncles, arranging platters of shrimp and pouring wine. My brother-in-law, Mark, fiddled with camera equipment near the floor-to-ceiling windows, setting up for the documentary about the Carter legacy. He caught my eye and gave a small wave. Trying to capture the magic, he said quietly. Your dad wants a lot of Ethan on film. Got mics all over for natural audio. I forced a laugh. Good luck finding anything real here. We were assigned a cramped guest room at the end of a hallway, its window facing a neighbor's fence instead of the ocean. Sophie didn't care, chattering about her cousins and her new watercolor set. Can I show them my paintings? Mom. My heart squeezed. Her confidence was everything I'd never been allowed. Of course, honey. Just pick a good moment. Okay, that first evening. The tension coiled tighter. At dinner. Richard grilled Ethan about his latest deals while Margaret critiqued my hair. A shorter cut would look more professional. Claire. Sophie sat with her cousins, ages 8 to 13, who corrected her every word and rolled their eyes when she spoke. I saw the hurt flicker in her eyes, but she kept trying. After dessert, my Aunt Susan pulled me aside. Ethan mentioned you're struggling since the divorce. We have an opening in our office mailroom if you need it. I swallowed my pride. Thanks, but I'm leading a project team now. I'm good. She patted my arm, unconvinced. Well, keep it in mind. Not everyone's cut out for big things. As I tucked Sophie into bed, she was quiet, tracing the quilt's pattern. What's wrong, sweetie? She hesitated. Cousin Liam said my paintings are silly, and Uncle Ethan told me to stop talking so much. The words hit like a slap. My family's poison was already seeping into her. Listen to me. Sophie. Your paintings are beautiful, and your voice matters. Some people just don't get it. She nodded, but her eyes were distant, lying awake that night, the ocean's roar outside. I felt the old fear creeping in. Had I made a mistake bringing her here? The Carters were a machine, grinding down anyone who didn't fit, and Sophie, with her bright, open heart, was in their sights. Morning broke over the Cape Cod estate, sunlight glinting off the ocean like a promise of peace. But the air inside felt heavy, charged with unspoken grudges. Sophie woke with a spark of her usual fire, tugging at my sleeve. Mom, can we paint by the beach today? I made a new picture. Her voice was a small rebellion against last night's slights. I kissed her forehead. Let's get through brunch first, sweetie. Then we'll paint the whole world. The dining hall was a spectacle, its long oak table draped in white linen, crystal glasses catching the light. My parents had hired caterers for their 40th anniversary brunch, a parade of lobster Benedict and mimosas. Richard sat at the head, flipping through a newspaper, while Margaret directed the staff with clipped commands. Ethan and Lauren were already there, his hand resting possessively on her arm. The room hummed with relatives, their laughter brittle, their glances sharp. Mark adjusted his microphones discreetly, capturing the Carter family's so-called legacy. Sophie clutched her latest painting, a vibrant swirl of blues and yellows meant to be the ocean. "Can I show Grandma?" she whispered, her eyes bright. I nodded, my stomach knotting. "Go for it, honey." She scampered to Margaret, holding up the paper. "Look, Grandma, it's the beach." Margaret barely glanced at it, her lips thinning. That's colorful. Sophie. Why don't you sit down? You're blocking the view. Sophie's shoulders slumped, but she nodded, retreating to the kids' table. I took a sip of coffee, my hands trembling. The cousins, led by Liam, were at it again, snickering as Sophie tried to join their card game. "Your turn's too slow," Liam said, shoving the deck away. Sophie bit her lip, her painting forgotten on the floor. I started to rise, but Ethan's voice cut through the chatter. "Claire, can't you keep her under control? She's always making a scene." His tone was casual, but his eyes were cold. I forced a steady voice. "She's just being a kid. Ethan, let her be, let her." Margaret chimed in, her voice syrupy but sharp. "She's a bit unrestrained, Claire. A little structure would do her good." Richard folded his paper, nodding. "Discipline shapes character. You'd know that if you'd raised her properly." The words landed like stones, and I felt the room's attention shift, relatives glancing between us. My cheeks burned. But I held my ground. She's 7. She doesn't need to be tamed. The brunch dragged on, mimosas loosening tongues. Sophie, undeterred, tried again to fit in, showing her painting to her cousin Emma. "It's pretty, right?" Emma smirked. "It's just a mess. Nobody cares." Sophie's face fell, and she slipped away to a corner, her shoulders hunched. I followed, kneeling beside her. "Sweetie, what's wrong?" Her voice was small. "They hate my pictures. Mom, am I bad at it?" My heart cracked. "No, Sophie, your art is you, and that's perfect. Don't let them dim your light." As I stood, I caught Ethan glaring from across the room. He'd been watching, his jaw tight. Then, a crash. Liam had knocked over a juice glass, the orange liquid pooling on the table. Ethan's voice boomed. "What's wrong with you kids? Can't you do anything right?" His face was red, his fist clenched. And for a moment, I saw fear flash in Liam's eyes. The room stilled, relatives exchanging uneasy looks. Lauren touched Ethan's arm, murmuring, "It's just juice." He shrugged her off, muttering, "They need to learn." My pulse raced. This wasn't just about Sophie. Ethan's anger was a storm, lashing out at anyone in its path. I guided Sophie back to our room, her painting clutched to her chest. "Let's take a break." "Okay." She nodded, her eyes distant, alone in the dim guest room. I sank onto the bed, my mind spinning. The Carters were closing ranks, their judgment suffocating. Sophie's joy was a threat to their control, and Ethan's temper was a ticking bomb. I'd brought her here hoping for connection, but now I saw the truth. This family didn't build bridges. They burned them. The Cape Cod sun blazed high, but the dining hall felt like a storm was brewing. The anniversary brunch stretched on, the clink of silverware and forced laughter filling the air. Sophie had returned to the kids' table, her painting tucked away, her spirit bruised but not broken. I watched her from my seat, my coffee cold, my nerves raw. Every glance from Ethan, every sharp word from Margaret, tightened the knot in my chest. I should have left yesterday, I thought, but Sophie's hope for family kept me here, a mistake I'd soon regret. Then, it happened. Sophie, finding a flicker of courage, stood up and started to sing. Her voice, clear and sweet, carried a song she'd written about the ocean waves crashing, seagulls soaring. It was her heart spilled into melody, a defiant burst of joy in this suffocating room. For a moment, I saw her shine, her eyes bright, her hands waving like she was painting the air. The cousins froze, their smirks fading. Even some relatives paused, charmed by her innocence, but Ethan's face darkened. His fork clattered against his plate, the sound sharp as a warning. "Enough of your noise," he roared, shoving his chair back. The room went silent, all eyes on him as he stormed toward Sophie. My heart lurched. I leapt up, my chair scraping the floor, but I was too far. Sophie looked up at her uncle, her song faltering, her smile uncertain, and then, crack. His hand struck her cheek, the slap echoing like thunder in the vaulted hall. Sophie's small body rocked back, her song cut dead, her painting fluttering to the floor. Time stopped. A red mark bloomed on her pale cheek, vivid and cruel. Sophie's eyes widened, shock giving way to tears. Ethan loomed over her, his voice cold. "You're raising a failure, Claire, just like you." His words were a blade, slicing through the stunned silence. Richard's low chuckle broke the spell. "She'll learn to keep quiet now. Kids need a firm hand." Margaret's laugh followed, high and tinkling. Claire never did grasp the value of restraint. I unfroze. Rushing to Sophie, my pulse pounding in my ears, I scooped her into my arms, her sobs muffled against my shoulder. Her cheek burned under my touch, the mark, a glaring accusation. "What is wrong with you?" I hissed at Ethan, my voice shaking with rage. He crossed his arms, unyielding. "She's old enough to know the world doesn't revolve around her racket. Maybe if you'd learned that, you wouldn't be a divorced nobody." I clutched Sophie tighter, her trembling body fueling my fury. "She's 7. She was singing." My voice cracked, but I didn't care. Richard set his newspaper down, his tone calm, dismissive. "You're overreacting. Claire, a little discipline builds character. Look at Ethan, turned out fine." Margaret nodded. "You're making a scene, as usual." A scene. My daughter's face was marked, her spirit crushed, and they called it discipline. Then I saw Mark, standing by his camera, his face pale. The documentary microphones hidden in the centerpieces, clipped to the curtains, were rolling, capturing every word, every sound. Ethan's slap, his venom, Richard's approval, Margaret's laughter. It was all on tape. Ethan's eyes flicked to Mark, a flash of panic crossing his face. He knew. I locked eyes with him, my resolve hardening. "We're done here," I said, my voice low, final. "Nobody touches my daughter. Nobody." Margaret scoffed. "Don't be dramatic, Claire. It was barely a tap." "A tap." I shifted Sophie, revealing the red welt on her cheek. For a split second, Margaret's mask slipped, doubt flickering in her eyes. But she recovered fast. "Children bruise easily. You're blowing this out of proportion." Ethan stepped closer, his voice a growl. "Watch yourself. Claire, call this what it wasn't, and you'll regret it." I backed toward the door, Sophie clinging to me. "Stay away from us." Richard called after me, his tone icy. "Walk out now, and don't expect our help anymore." No more handouts. The threat hung heavy, a reminder of the checks that had kept me afloat. But it didn't matter. Not anymore. "Keep your money," I said, my voice steady. "It's not worth this." Ethan's laugh followed me, sharp and mocking, running away again. "Little sister, that's all you're good for." I didn't look back. Sophie's sobs were all I heard as I carried her up the grand staircase, the ocean's roar fading behind us. In that moment, I knew everything had changed. Ethan had crossed a line no one could uncross. And those microphones? They held the truth, a truth I'd make sure the world heard. I carried Sophie to our cramped guest room, her sobs softening into hiccups. The red mark on her cheek glared under the dim light, a wound deeper than skin. I grabbed a washcloth, soaked it in cold water, and pressed it gently to her face. "It hurts." "Mommy," she whispered, her voice trembling. Why did Uncle Ethan hit me? Was I bad? Her words tore through me like glass. No, baby, I said, pulling her close. You were perfect. Ethan was wrong. So wrong. As Sophie curled against me, I packed our bags with shaking hands. We had to leave now. I couldn't let my family twist this, make Sophie doubt herself the way they'd done to me. A soft knock startled me. Who's there? I called, shielding Sophie. It's Mark, came the hushed reply. I cracked the door. His face was grim. I got it all on tape. Claire, the slap. Ethan's words, your parents' reactions, everything. He leaned closer. I can get you a copy before they make me erase it. My breath caught. You'd do that. He nodded. What Ethan did. It's assault, and the others. They're complicit. Meet me by your car in 15. I called Jessica, my voice breaking as I told her what happened. He hit her. Jess, for singing. Her outrage crackled through the phone. Get out of there. Claire, come to my place. They don't get to follow you. Sophie fell asleep, exhausted, and I carried her downstairs, bags slung over my shoulder. Margaret intercepted us in the foyer, her arms crossed. Where do you think you're going? I met her gaze. Home. Or did you think I'd stay after Ethan assaulted my daughter? She waved a hand. It was a tap. Claire, you're being hysterical. I shifted Sophie, showing the fading welt. This isn't a tap. For a moment, she faltered, then snapped. You're shaming this family. I pushed past her, the front door slamming behind us. Mark waited by my car, hidden by a row of pines. He handed me a USB drive. It's all here. Be careful, they'll come for you. I clutched it, my lifeline. Thank you. Mark. The drive to Jessica's was silent. Sophie dozing, the USB burning a hole in my pocket. At Jessica's, she hugged us fiercely. You're safe now. Both of you. That night, with Sophie asleep, Jessica and I listened to the recording. Ethan's shout, the slap's sharp crack, his cruel failure jab, Richard's chuckle, Margaret's laugh. It was worse than I remembered. This is evil, Jessica whispered. I nodded, my resolve stealing. They don't get to walk away from this. The next day, I took Sophie to her pediatrician, Dr. Patel, who documented the bruise and referred us to a child therapist. She's showing signs of trauma, Dr. Patel said gently. Fear, withdrawal, therapy will help. I met with a lawyer friend, Sarah, who listened to the audio. This is damning. She said criminal charges might be tough, but civilly, this could ruin Ethan's reputation. I shook my head. Not about money. It's about accountability. Sarah's words sparked a plan. Ethan's bank had a strict ethics code, and he sat on a children's charity board. I edited the audio unmanipulated. Just the raw truth, the slap, his venom, my parents' complicity. Then I sent it to 3 places. First Coastal Bank's board, the Children's Hope Foundation, and the Boston Youth Mentorship Program. My email was calm, professional as a concerned family member. I'm sharing this incident involving Ethan Carter, given his public roles with children, within hours. Ethan's texts flooded my phone, frantic. What have you done? The bank's suspending me. Fix this. Claire, I blocked him. Richard's messages were cold. You've betrayed us. Margaret's desperate. Call me. We can sort this out. I ignored them. By week's end, first, Coastal placed Ethan on leave. Pending investigation, the charity dropped him, citing their zero-tolerance policy. The mentorship program paused his role. Then, a twist. The bank's probe uncovered Ethan's history of bullying, staff threats, intimidation, hushed-up complaints. His golden image crumbled. Sophie's therapy revealed she'd started a diary, scribbling her fears and hopes. I wrote about the ocean. She told me shyly. Her words lit a fire. I launched Voices Unsilenced, a campaign to protect kids from family violence, inspired by her diary. It spread fast, parents, survivors, advocates sharing stories online. Ethan's world was unraveling, and Sophie's voice was rising. For the first time, I felt power, not fear. This wasn't just justice, it was a revolution. Sophie's laughter filled our Boston apartment, a sound I'd feared I'd never hear again. Weeks after we fled Cape Cod, her spark was returning, like a flower pushing through cracked earth. Therapy with Dr. Larson, a kind-eyed child psychologist, worked wonders. Sophie's resilient. Dr. Larson told me. Her diary's helping her process the trauma, and your support is everything. I smiled, but guilt lingered. I hadn't stopped Ethan's hand, but I'd fight for her healing now. Sophie joined a children's art club, her paintbrush dancing across canvases with bold blues and fiery reds. One afternoon, she showed me a painting of a lighthouse, steady against a stormy sea. "It's you." "Mom," she said, her eyes bright. "You keep me safe." My throat tightened. Her trust was a gift I'd never take for granted. At the club's community exhibit, her lighthouse shone under gallery lights, drawing gasps from strangers. Watching her beam as people praised her work, I saw her reclaiming her joy. My campaign, Voices Unsilenced, grew beyond my wildest hopes. Sophie's diary entries, shared with her permission, inspired survivors to speak out online. Parents emailed me, thanking us for giving them courage to set boundaries with toxic relatives. A local councilwoman reached out, and after months of advocacy, we helped pass a city ordinance strengthening child protections in family disputes. Every step felt like a brick in a wall against the pain Ethan caused. Ethan's life, meanwhile, unraveled. First Coastal Bank demoted him to a back-office role. His executive shine tarnished. The Children's Hope Foundation's public statement cut deep. "We uphold the highest standards for child welfare." His mentorship program ties were severed. Lauren, his wife, left him, filing for separation after a tearful coffee with me. "That recording," she said, her voice shaky. "It made me see Ethan's temper at home, the yelling, the broken dishes." "I can't stay," I squeezed her hand. "You're doing the right thing." She nodded, eyes red. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. My parents tried to rebuild bridges, but their efforts were clumsy." Margaret invited us to dinner, acting like nothing happened. "We miss Sophie," she wrote. No mention of Ethan's slap. Richard's email called it a misunderstanding we can move past. I set firm boundaries, no contact with Sophie until they owned their role. "In family therapy," Richard admitted, grudgingly. "I should have stopped Ethan. It was wrong." Margaret struggled, her voice cracking. "I just wanted peace." I held my ground. Peace doesn't mean ignoring harm. At Horizon Media, my newfound strength shone. A project manager role opened. And though I doubted myself, I applied. My boss, Grace, saw something new in me. "Your leadership during this crisis, strategic, calm, ethical. It's what we need." I got the job, the raise easing our financial strain. No more begging Richard for help. I stood taller, my voice steady in meetings, my ideas bold. The Claire who once shrank under criticism was gone. "Mark, my brother-in-law, called one evening." His voice low. Other relatives saw Ethan's aggression before pushing cousins, snapping at kids. "They're backing you now." Claire, the family was splitting, not by blood, but by values. My Aunt Ellen, Richard's sister, confessed she'd witnessed Ethan's cruelty at past gatherings, but stayed silent. "I'm ashamed," she said. "You're braver than I ever was." Her words, and others, built a new kind of family, one rooted in truth. Sophie's progress was my anchor. Dr. Larson cut our sessions to monthly, noting Sophie's confidence returning. She sang again, softly at first, then louder, her ocean song filling our home. One night, she tugged my sleeve. "Mom, I'm not scared anymore. My voice is mine." I hugged her tight, tears falling. She was healing, and so was I. The campaign, the job, the boundaries, they weren't just for Sophie. They were for the girl I'd been, silenced too long. Ethan's slap meant to break us, but it forged something unbreakable instead. 7 months after Ethan's slap shattered our world, I sat on our apartment's tiny balcony, the Boston skyline glowing under a crisp autumn sunset. Sophie slept inside, her latest painting a vibrant mural of stars and waves propped against the wall. Our home, once a symbol of struggle, was now a sanctuary of laughter and color. Voices Unsilenced had grown into a non-profit, its mission to protect kids' right to be heard spreading across communities. Sophie's diary, her brave little words, had sparked a movement, and me, I was no longer the Claire who cowered under the Carter family's shadow. Looking back, I see how that awful moment in Cape Cod changed everything. Ethan's hand didn't just mark Sophie's cheek. It tore down the lies I'd lived with for years. My parents' laughter, their dismissal, showed me who they really were. But it also showed me who I could be, a mother who'd fight for her child, a woman who'd claim her voice. The pain was a brutal teacher, but it taught me lessons I'll carry forever. First, protect your truth. Family loyalty can be a trap, chaining you to silence when injustice strikes. I learned to speak, even when my voice shook, because truth is the only path to justice. Second, children's voices matter. Sophie's song, her paintings, they're her soul, not a nuisance to be crushed. We must lift kids up, not dim their light to fit our comfort. Third, strength grows through action. Courage isn't feeling fearless, it's moving forward despite the fear. Sending that recording, starting the campaign, setting boundaries, each step built a stronger me. One cool morning, Sophie led a group of kids at the community center, painting a mural for Voices Unsilenced. Her laughter rang out, her brush bold, her confidence a quiet triumph. My mother was there, invited after months of therapy and small steps toward accountability. She watched Sophie, her eyes soft. "She has a beautiful voice," Margaret said, her voice catching. I should have stood up for her that day. I nodded. You should have. But what matters is what you do now. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. This journey isn't over. There'll be more hard talks, more boundaries to hold, more healing for Sophie and me. But I face the future unbowed, Sophie's hand in mine, our path lit by the truth we've claimed. Ethan tried to silence a child's song. Instead, he gave voice to a reckoning that broke generations of lies. Have you ever had to stand up to family to protect someone vulnerable? Drop your story in the comments. I read everyone. If this resonated, hit subscribe for more stories of courage and healing. Your voice, like Sophie's, deserves to be heard, without fear, without shame. Thank you for walking this path with us.